What's going on, everybody? Zack Rosenblatt here with Mike Kaye at the NovaCare Complex for the latest episode of the No Huddle Show. Howie Roseman, kind enough to start a rumor for us today. Or maybe he didn't. He probably did start the rumor, actually.
Somebody thought it was like the Chargers getting it out there. I didn't really understand.
But, so we'll get into that. We're going to talk mainly about that, some other miscellaneous football stuff. We're going to do a full preview show on Friday. Or I think we're going to record on Friday is the plan as of now. And before we did that, I just wanted to put out a call to you guys to send us some of your bold predict. Number one, what you think the Eagles' record will be this season, and number two, a bold prediction for the season. We'll kind of go through a lot of them on the next podcast. You can either tweet that at both me and Mike. I'm at Zack Blatt, Z-A-C-K. He's at Mike_E_K. You can comment on this podcast, write a review with your prediction, and we're kind of going to go through a lot of them, and we'll tell you how smart or not so smart they are. I thought that would be fun. And we're also going to, go game by game, do some predictions, have a little fun with it. We'll do a whole blowout season preview pod since you weren't even here this time last year. It was still me and Elliot.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it's almost been a year anniversary for you.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, and at this point we knew you were coming though because Lombardo covered the first game with me.
Yeah, I agreed to terms, as it were.
The moratorium and before free agency, like you agreed to.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it was the morning before the final preseason game. So
did you cover the Jaguars' first game? Still?
Yeah. Well, I didn't on the road. I was supposed to go to New York. They played the Giants, and they pulled me from the road once I get my notice. So.
Is it cool for you being in Philly, like leading up? Like, there's definitely a different energy when you're around here, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
especially for a home game too.
Yeah, having been a blogger covering the team, it's definitely different because you're balancing two different audiences. I feel like. No, it's been cool. I mean, and there's a lot going on personally too, so it's like you're balancing.
You don't have a personal life.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's what I mean. There's a lot going on personally, but I'm focused on this. No, it's been cool. It's been cool. I thought our training camp was awesome. Just how we worked together on that one, and our training camp coverage, I should say.
So I was on 97.5 with Mark Farzetta and Trey Thomas yesterday, and at the end they threw me a curveball and asked what I enjoy about doing the No Huddle show with you so much. I could not think of anything. And
that sounds like our relationship.
And the ironic thing was that came off cross-run. So I started telling about how I cut you off all the time, and by doing this podcast, I've learned to stop doing that. And in doing that, I was like pretty much cutting him off. So there's some irony there. But I think that's a good segue into us doing this episode. I think I've gotten better, by the way. You guys can tell me if I'm right or wrong.
You're like Carson Wentz with learning to protect his body. It's like a muscle memory thing, right? So
I think I've gotten better, right?
Yeah, so is Carson, even though he had a back injury. We know whatever.
Hey, I'm trying, okay? I'm trying. We grow. Mm-hmm. Last year was my first year even like hosting a podcast not by myself, but like being the host, so it was fun. All right. But we're gonna get into a more routine. I think we're gonna have more segments this year. I'm looking forward to this season. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll get a few podcasts going each week. Emergency ones as Howie does some trades. But people love a good emergency pod. We haven't had one of those in a while, actually. Probably since, the Carson Wentz contract.
We probably should have had some, but, life comes it jumps in the way.
Yeah, including, even at the trade deadline, we should have had one, but I was, in Paris.
Yeah, it's always you. By the way, if you're ever wondering why we don't have an emergency podcast, it's almost always Zack, because Zack actually travels and has a life. I'm always home.
The perks of being single and not living with anybody, except for my dog. Okay. So on the emergency trade topic, we'll jump into the rumor that dropped a little bit before we started recording, which was like I said, just really nice of Howie. I think he did this offer knowing that they weren't going to accept it, just so we could talk about it on our podcast. I think that's my theory.
Clear listener to the No Huddle show.
Clear listener. So the trade offer, if you haven't seen by now, it was according to Albert Breer, who said he asked around, and the only trade offer he could find for Melvin Gordon was Jordan Howard. The Eagles and Chargers would swap a mid-round pick. He didn't specify what kind of mid-round pick. And the Eagles asked the Chargers to pay some of Melvin Gordon's salary. That was a clear how he just doing an offer that he knew wouldn't be accepted, but why not? Why not Wednesday?
Yeah, it's a due diligence thing, right? He has said it several times this week. He looks into literally everyone who's available, and I think, that was an offer hey, take it or leave it, whatever.
That's kind of like how I am in fantasy. I'll do a lowball offer. A lot of times it pisses people off, but you do it so you can, if they counter, it's it becomes like a more normal offer. But you know what I mean? Yeah, it's a
just
negotiation tactic.
Well, it's just like last night. The rumor came out that the Chargers wanted a first and a fifth for Gordon, which is nuts.
Yeah. That's why I tweeted this. It's like, Chargers, we want a first and a fifth round pick. Howie's like, all right, how about not that, and instead you give us a pick and you also pay for him. Oh, okay, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, that deal was whoa.
But so I know you mentioned like the due diligence thing. I think it is more interesting that according to the rumor, that there was an actual offer at least, right?
Well, I mean, normally when you're
as opposed to exploring what a team wants,
right?
Them an
yeah,
offer.
Normally they'll be like, well, so what would you offer us? Blah. I think that's probably the gist of the conversation, like feeling each other out. I mean, I don't think it was an actual offer.
So what do you like? What's your reaction to Jordan Howard being like the centerpiece from the Eagles' perspective?
Well, I mean, if you're gonna get, you've got to give, and I think Howard being on the last year of his deal, you're not gonna have to pay him straight up. That's appealing to the Chargers, a team that is viewed as a potential Super Bowl favorite, or not a favorite, but a potential contender. And so, you want to get this Gordon thing resolved before the season starts. You don't want him to be a distraction. It's kind of like we'll cut our losses, but we've also got this backup plan. And Jordan Howard posted, the third most rushing yards in the league over the last 3 years.
More than Gordon, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think when you look at that, in a way, it makes sense. I mean, if you trade for Gordon, Howard pretty much becomes expendable. It's the same thing I said about LaShawn McCoy. If they were interested in signing or bringing in LaShawn McCoy, it's not going to affect Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders is the future of this running back rotation. It's going to affect Jordan Howard, who, while he might be the short-term number one, he's definitely the long-term number two, or not here.
Yeah.
So I think if you're Howie and you're saying, well, I got 1 year with Melvin Gordon, or I have 1 year with Jordan Howard, I feel better about Melvin Gordon as a receiver out of the backfield, and I know he's probably a better fit for my offense long term. I'd like to get 1 year of evaluating him as opposed to Jordan Howard, who I've had a whole training camp to look at and know that maybe I want to move on from him.
Yeah, I think the interesting part about this is he's holding out because he wants more money right now. So I wonder if that would have meant either the Eagles were just going to take the risk and hope he just would do a 1 year rental with them, or if they had it in mind that they would sign him to it. I mean, maybe they didn't even think that far. The idea that they were asking the Chargers to pay for something makes me think they were okay with him not playing here if they traded for him, kind of thing. Like if he wanted to keep holding out. Like what was your thought in terms of that perspective? Like, do you think they would have given him a new contract if they traded for him?
Well, I think if you were somebody who was rooting for the Jadeveon Clowney trade, it's pretty much the same situation, only at a
cheaper
and at a position that's less valued. I think either way, the Eagles would have stuck with the 1 year, and you let it play out. It's kind of like JHI, right? So
if it works out, it works out. Yeah.
Yeah. That running back room, I think you tweeted it out yesterday, is making less than what Gio Bernard is making
on his new deal.
His new deal, which is like $6 million, right? Yeah. So you don't have a lot of money invested there. You have the option of seeing whether it works out. It's kind of like a Golden Tate like flyer, only I think Gordon is an exceptional player.
Yeah.
I think
Tate, and he's young.
Yeah, I think Tate's more of a novelty act, if I can say that. But again, like if you have a plan for him, awesome. I also think it takes the pressure off Miles Sanders to immediately be the guy. This team has shown with running backs that they're willing to take their time. LaShawn McCoy had Brian Westbrook for a year. Then they cut Westbrook and he went to the 49ers, and then they just let him rip. You look at how they've kind of treated these other running backs. Obviously, they weren't drafted to be the guys, but they've had like a two-back system. Even with Chip, they had Ryan Matthews and
DeMarco Murray, yeah.
Yeah, so like Doug Peterson said today that, this is a long season, and guys wear down, and guys get injured, and guys have special teams roles. And so it's all about self-preservation by having all this talent in the committee, and that's why it makes sense. A lot of people thought when Jordan Howard was traded here, they'd move away from the committee. But when they drafted Miles Sanders, it not only reinforced the depth at the position and the committee, but it also made the use of the committee even more valid because you have all these guys that can do all these different things. And Melvin Gordon is a guy who can catch out of the back. I was a massive fan of his coming out of the draft. And I think for like a few years, like the Chargers drafted all of my favorite prospects, like Jason Verrett, all those guys.
Which is probably why you're a little high on them this year.
Yeah, I am very high. We'll get onto that later, maybe on Friday. Yeah. But yeah, I know I'm rambling, but I just think when you look at the dynamics of this running back group, it's easier to take a risk and a flyer on a running back because they are so inconsequential to your cap space than it is to take a shot on Clowney, who could be a malcontent. He could not like Jim Schwartz. He's not going to be part of a rotation. Running back at this point, you're going to be part of it. Gordon was going to be part of a rotation with two talented running backs with the Chargers anyway. So I think if you could get him for basically Howard and a 4th round pick, I think them swapping a pick 2 was kind of where I would hold up if I was the Chargers. But
I'd be like, wait, why are we also giving you
right? So my offer to them would be, look, we'll give you a 4th and Jordan Howard, a conditional 4th and Jordan Howard for Gordon. If he leads you in rushing, it becomes a 3rd.
Yeah,
that's what I would offer.
Yeah, and I mean, from the Eagles' perspective, it makes sense to do a low ball in a way because you don't know if he's going to, like, hypothetically, you either have to sign him to a contract or you don't know if he's going to even be willing to play for you. So, like, that's kind of that's I'm sure why they're doing the swap in the contract part, which they knew they weren't going to accept.
Well, and it's also a superficial trade, right? They don't need Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. He's a luxury.
Right, so which is something that I thought about with Jadeveon Clowney too, right? Like, some people may not like their pass rush, but the Eagles really like their pass rush. That's not a show there. I think they've invested heavily in that running back position, similar to how they've invested in the defensive end position. If they're interested in Melvin Gordon, it's because they can buy him cheap.
Yeah, and, funny, like you were talking about Howard's production. Gordon has been technically less productive as a runner, but he only played 1 full season in his career. He also wouldn't be a bell cow in Philadelphia. So, like, he's kind of like a perfect fit.
Well, and that's also why you don't see him getting paid. He's kind of similar to J.J. in a way, only he's actually, he was a 1st round pick, and so he's got the financial strain. But, I think Melvin Gordon could do some damage here. He really could. His playing style really...
Another toy for... I know Doug Peterson doesn't like them being called toys, I guess. But
well-oiled machine.
Another well-oiled machine for Carson Wentz.
I also think his ability to be dynamic is similar to Miles Sanders. And, Gordon's a much harder runner, but I think they would complement each other very well. Look, I think Jordan Howard can play.
Yeah, me too.
I have him, for you fantasy nuts, I have him rushing for 700 yards and having 6 touchdowns. That's what I think realistically he can do. Because his carries and touches are going to be mitigated by...
for a fantasy purpose, he'll be touchdown dependent.
Right, yeah. He'll be mitigated by... I think Sanders is also going to have 700 yards and maybe 5 rushing touchdowns. You know what I mean? I think they're going to have pretty comparable numbers. But I think what Gordon can do is create some situations. You have Darren Sproles and with his buddy Corey Clement, and, they can see where they could go with that. I just think Gordon is an upgrade. I know the numbers don't necessarily show that, but he is an upgrade over Jordan Howard. It's not even close, but we'll see.
How do you think the Gordon situation plays out? Do you think he winds up being traded or that he just plays for the Chargers?
I think he'll get traded, and I think it'll be similar to what the Eagles offered them, where it's like a running back on the last year of a contract. And
trying to think of what the teams that need running backs that jump to mind are like the Buccaneers. The Texans still need one.
Yeah, I'm shocked.
It'd be funny if the Texans just traded another 2nd round pick for a guy like him.
I'm kind of shocked that the Buccaneers haven't offered Ronald Jones in a 2nd for him.
Yeah. Are there any other obvious ones that need running backs?
They keep saying San Francisco's got a deep roster, but if you could upgrade where you send Matt Breida,
Breida,
and a 2nd round
pick. So then you have Coleman and Gordon as your tandem. Yeah, because McKinnon, poor dude, is on IR again.
Yeah. Oakland just drafted Jacobs.
The Seahawks have Carson and Penny.
Yeah.
There's not really... A lot of teams have running backs now because a lot of teams stack them, too, with 2 guys.
Green Bay, you could argue. I guess Baltimore.
They like Aaron Jones. Yeah, Baltimore. They'd sign Ingram, though.
Yeah. Their market's very...
That's probably why they're not going to get a 1st round unless Bill O'Brien just gave up his only 1st round pick, so unless he's trading his 2021 pick.
Actually, yeah.
Unless he's trading his 21 pick.
Yeah.
Bill O'Brien.
No, the 2021's there too.
Oh, true, yeah. So 2022, I meant.
Yeah.
The point being, the Texans are going all in on this
year. Yeah. The Colts would be interesting. You could tag teaming with Marlon Mack.
The point being, they're not going to get what they want.
Trading a running back is very difficult. Look at what the Bears got for Josh Gordon. For Jordan Howard.
I don't know. The Colts traded a first for Trent Richardson.
They did. Ryan Grigson is no longer a general manager.
R.I.P.
He's
alive. He's still alive, by the way.
I still think about that Wembley thing where he pounded the... anyway, sorry.
What Wembley thing?
So, my favorite story, and it's not even really a story,
my favorite story is not a story.
Yeah, the Jaguars were playing the Colts in London, and, you've been there. You're in...
Cool stadium.
Yeah, in Wembley, you're in the crowd, essentially.
Yeah.
And Ryan Grigson was sitting behind me, and the Colts could not move the ball at all. I think they had 6 straight failed drive, third and outs or something like that. It was the year that, the Jaguars were just beating the bricks off of them. Not from a score point, but they were really dominating the line of scrimmage. And every single time there was a bad play, you heard a F, and he would slam the table with his fist. And it was
everybody just look back at
you could hear it in a stadium full of thousands of fans screaming. It was pretty incredible. That's my favorite thing ever.
And now that's his lasting legacy. So
yeah, clearly. Well, no, I think his lasting legacy is ruining.
As being the reason why Andrew Luck is no longer in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I think we covered all the ground on the Melvin Gordon thing. So we'll turn a little bit to guys that are on the team right now. We can touch on injuries real quick. So Eagles had a really good day of practice. So as this recording, we know that Fletcher Cox, these guys were all out there for the warm-ups, which means they probably were going to at least practice on a limited basis. So Fletcher Cox, Nigel Bradham, Ronald Darby, Dallas Goedert, Brandon Brooks, all have been either out or limited. Am I missing somebody? I know Jordan Mailata was still out.
Yeah, right? Jordan Mailata and Camus were both out.
Yeah, and Nate Sudfeld. So basically all the guys that everybody is freaking out about are in shape, at least, if not to return in week 1, then week 2. I'd bet Cox plays in week 1, Bradham, Darby, Goddard.
Brooks is the only guy, yeah.
Brooks I'm still iffy on. I'm maybe more likely that he plays now than I thought maybe a few weeks ago, but you need more than 1 week of full practice before you go.
I don't even know if it's necessary.
Yeah, the Redskins have a good pass rush, but it seems like they trust Vaitai.
The issue that you're going to have, so you don't have Mailata, but your backups are going to be Matt Pryor, Nate Herbig, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, and Dillard.
Yeah, Dillard's. Well, so my thought process, so they still haven't signed a third tight end. Maybe they'll call up Alex Ellis or something, or maybe they don't do anything, but I'm under the impression, I know you wrote about this, that maybe they use Andre Dillard a little bit as an extra blocker, especially if the Redskins pass rush is as good as people think it might be. With they have Kerrigan, who's always given Lane Johnson trouble, and they have Montez Sweat. I think they have a couple other guys in there, so I wouldn't be surprised if Dillard saw the field.
Yeah, so what I'll say about this from just a depth chart standpoint, right? Dillard's only practiced at left. I'm not going to hurt his confidence by putting him at right. I'm not going to do it. So Matt Pryor would be that guy. Matt Pryor would also be the backup the backup left guard. And then your backup center would be Herbig, who's been snapping for a month. You know what I mean? So it's not ideal. That's why you would love to have Brooks, because, I guess you could move Sayamalu to center.
So I'm curious, who are the inactives?
Mailata.
Yeah, so you got to factor in Camus. So that's 3 right there.
I'm going to say Rudy Ford, just because we don't know what his story is.
He did practice today, though.
He did. Brooks could also be a guy that, if he's not there, so that's 5. And then I'd imagine that maybe TJ Edwards.
Yeah, TJ Edwards or Sharif Miller.
Yeah, Sharif Miller.
I feel like Herbig would be active over.
Okay, so let's say everybody's playing. Camus, Sudfeld, Herbig, Miller.
Matt Collins?
No, Matt's going to be there for special teams.
It's tough because they're light they're light at some positions. So
you can argue Hassan Ridgeway because Graham and
because they'll move inside.
Yeah, TJ Edwards, and then
I guess Rudy Ford maybe
either Rudy Ford or Cyprian. Yeah. So because Cyprian doesn't really. He plays special teams, but he's not really.
There's going to be someone in there that you'd think would play. I feel like is what it'll unless the injured guys are all injured.
Yeah, I think if you're going to roll with a gunner, you can roll with Devontae Maddox and Matt Collins that first game and give Rudy Ford another week to recover. I don't think it's really that pressing.
Wait, they only need 6 though, not 7, because they have 52-man roster, right?
Oh, right, yeah.
Yes.
And to your
unless they sign like Alex Ellis or whatever.
Yeah, and to your point about the 52, I wouldn't jump to the conclusion of maybe it's an extra tight end. Like, I'm more so thinking it's a corner.
Yeah. Or they might even just keep it empty for a week and then bring Skandrick back next week.
Right, yeah, I mean, that's doable. I think what you could do is you could sign a guy who's not a vested veteran at corner, and he could be your backup nickel, and then you cut him next week for Skandrick. The issue that they're going to have with putting LeBlanc on IR, which they had to do anyway, is shouts out to him for getting a 1-year extension.
He got an extension to 2020.
We should have had an emergency pod, obviously.
We can talk about that a little bit actually for the next topic.
So at corner, you're starting Darby and Sidney Jones. I think it's pretty clear they think Darby's going to play because you only have 4 corners right now. Even if you didn't have the 4 corners, like, you would need to sign somebody. So let's say, okay, so you got Darby and Jones outside, Maddox in nickel. Douglas is your main backup on the outside, but he can't play inside. And here's the issue. If McLeod goes down, Maddox is your most likely backup free safety. I know Zendejo's been practicing there, but they don't necessarily
if they don't have another corner, then he's not, though.
Right, exactly. But you don't want to be put in that position. So what you do is you can sign like a Dexter McDougal type guy and just have him be that backup. You know, I mean...
Because as someone pointed out, the reason why you wouldn't call up somebody like Alex Ellis is if they call him up, they play him, and then you need to sign Skandrick back next week or whatever, then you have to put Ellis through waivers, and then you're risking losing him, hypothetically.
Well, they could sign him off the practice squad either.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not, there's no risk. I promise. Nobody's like, I mean, they could have picked him up last week.
Yeah,
what's he going to do? Have 3 blocks in a game? And you're like, oh my gosh.
I mean, he's pretty good.
They gave him 85. He's sticking around.
Changed number, the 49 is a tough one. It's good he got out of that.
We got to talk. We brought up Shareef Miller earlier. I can't get out of this podcast discussion without talking about his new number. So his new number is 51. 51. He's a defensive end.
He had 76 before, which is a tough one, too.
Yeah,
he's off to a bad start to his rookie.
I would have stuck with 76.
I don't know, though. Apparently, he's going to be a breakout player this year, from what I hear.
Oh, man. Damn, take a shot.
We'll subtweet. All right. But so you mentioned this a little bit. This is what I want to talk about next was the cornerbacks. Doug pretty much, without like saying the exact word starter, said that the starter is on the outside. If Darby's healthy, it would be Darby and Jones with Maddox in the slot. And he said Douglas would see a lot of time. I don't know. What was your reaction? It's not surprising, but like you and I have both been on the train of like, what more does Rasul have to do?
Yeah. So what I'll say is this. I think Jones and Darby fit exactly what Schwartz wants in cornerbacks, where they can play off and recover and cover in space and close in on the ball. Douglas is more of a zone corner, and so you have to scheme up for him a little bit. Douglas can play both sides. I think he's one of the better backup corners in the league. But they invested the second-round pick in Sidney Jones, he's the guy that they've always wanted on the field. Douglas was always the backup plan. That's why he was drafted immediately after. So I'm not surprised there. What my concern would be is if Darby or Jones goes down and you've hurt Douglas's confidence. Like, he had a good training camp. He had a good preseason. So
I think that's part of why he got off to such a slow start last year, too, because they didn't play him at all for the first, 5 games.
Yeah, I don't know what the stick-up is with that. Because if you're that concerned about his fit in the scheme, why are you not trading him or moving him to safety? I don't know. It's weird. I mean, they're in a weird spot. They got a lot out of Jones, Douglas, and Maddox last year, and they also got a lot out of Cravon. So, look, Darby's the best corner on this team, talent-wise. I don't even think it's close.
Just health has always been an issue with him.
Right, but same with Jones. So
that's what I'm saying. Your two guys are... Your two whereas Douglas has missed 1 game in his 3 years.
And you also have a guy in
2 years, I should say.
Yeah, and you also got a guy in Avonte Maddox who's actually pretty good at playing outside, too.
Avonte, who... I think he missed 3 games last year, but he also played 12 different positions. So that you should be okay. If Darby's one of the most talented guys, I get it, but I don't know. I get why they're starting Jones, but I still think he should have to win the job from Douglas. I don't think it should be the other way around.
So conversely, right? What if you hurt Jones's confidence
Yeah, maybe that's part of it, honestly, yeah.
Yeah, he's the guy that can't catch a break, right?
And he's the guy that you would think would have a tougher time with, like, the mental side of things, just with all the injuries he's had and stuff, yeah.
And I think if you're not starting Jones, it's time to cut ties. You know what I mean? Trade him or whatever for loans.
So maybe they're testing out these first couple weeks and seeing how he does.
I mean, look, I think Douglas has proven that he can play, and Jones hasn't. But I also think Jones' upside is
higher,
significantly higher,
for sure. Like, I don't know how much better Douglas is going to get.
Right. I think that's part of it too. I know that there were teams.
It's a good problem to have, I should say. Like, they have good options at corner, whereas in past years, corner was the one position everybody was down on.
I don't know if they've shopped Douglas, but I know for a fact that there were a couple of teams that were really interested in him. So, I don't know, maybe when Mills and LeBlanc are back, you shop them at the trade deadline. But, yeah, I mean, it's not a great look for him.
So, LeBlanc, we'll just touch on this briefly. He signed a 1-year extension. So now the Eagles have 4 corners, that under contract through 2020, all young ones. The only ones that aren't are Jalen Mills and Darby now, which is a really good position to be in. And they clearly like LeBlanc. I'm sure part of it had to do with him getting hurt, from his perspective at least, because I feel like he probably wanted to prove that he deserved more, and that last year wasn't a fluke or whatever. But when you're missing at least half the year, he's not going to have much value unless he was really, really good. And he's going to be a backup in the second half of the year anyway. So it was a smart move on both sides, I think. And you and I have both talked about, like way back in May, about how they should sign him and Camus, who also happens to be injured, the two guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting dynamic. Like, I think he was really, we talked to his trainer, right? He was really in the mode of, hey, I'm going to ball out this year and then get a new deal. And I think the Eagles did right by him by offering him an extension because, frankly, you get another year and a half of evaluation, which I think is great. I also think if they do decide to trade Darby, now you have your starting nickel corner, Maddox and Jones are on the outside. You have them under contract. So no matter what, you have a starting 3 under contract, which is important.
Yeah.
Especially because they're going to move. The safety room is going to be a mess next year. So
yeah. I should say, we haven't done a podcast since the official 53-man roster came out, because that was a couple days ago. But
whose fault was that?
I was away at a friend's wedding. But I should say I almost won the beat writer 53-man roster prediction. I came into a 4-way tie with Jimmy Kempsey, Bo Wolf, John McMullen, and it came down to the practice squad. And the practice squad, they did a whole bunch of weird stuff where they brought Bruce Hector back and all these other guys were claimed. So I lost, and I'm really upset about it. Bo keeps rubbing it in everybody's face. You weren't in the mix, though. That was just notable, which means I'm better than you, I think.
So you know why I wasn't in the mix? I was listening to you idiots in the press box try to talk yourself in and out of Clayton Thorson.
Oh yeah, that was like all.
And I was thinking to myself, like, I've got to ignore this conversation. So I started something in my head where, like, hey, should they keep T.J. Edwards or should they keep Orlando?
Yeah, and you were the one who originally had T.J. in
there.
Yeah,
and so I switched it, or I would have been in the race. And
I added T.J. Edwards pretty late in my prediction too.
Yeah, so like that's why
I spent more time freaking out about my 53-man prediction than actually watching that stupid ass game.
Can we talk about something about the 53-man predictions?
What?
I think you owe it to the fan base of this show to give me an apology about Nate Herbig and my conspiracy theory that they were trying to bury him on the unofficial depth chart because they didn't want eyes on him.
But they kept him though.
Right, but here's why you do it. Right, you do it because if he sucks in the preseason. Or he's not good enough in the preseason, and you decide to keep Wisniewski, then he gets through waivers because it doesn't seem like he's like that big of a deal.
I mean, I still don't believe that, but I'll give you credit for saying Herbig was going to make the team.
Scouts look at everything.
You said it before the first preseason game.
No, I know, but I'm telling you, it was.
I don't feel like debating you about Nate Herbig again, but I will say you do deserve credit because you had him on your roster for a couple weeks. You deserve credit for that.
Yeah.
Where I was going? So. The Redskins, Trent Williams won't be playing this week, which is pretty much expected, but it's all but official now. Mm-hmm. Who do you think is going to feast the most on that? I mean, and also Eric Flowers is probably going to be starting on the interior. So Mike Jackson will have a nice day.
So it'll be Donald Penn and Eric Flowers on the left side, which means they'll probably go up against Derek Barnett and
what a bad offensive line, my God.
Yeah, so I mean, it's the game you want to return to if you're Derek Barnett or Fletcher.
Yeah,
Cox.
if he's going to show the fan base that he can be the guy that they all wanted Jadeveon Clowney for, like, it's going to be on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean,
unless he's not healthy yet, I guess. But
I think he plays, and I think he could have a pretty good day.
What does he get, like 7 sacks? Like,
no,
I'm kidding.
Let's set the bar at 1.5. Let's set the bar at 1.5.
Sorry. But, I mean, so how many sacks do you think the Eagles get as a team? Like, they should. I know they don't
6.
blitz. They don't blitz, but still.
6. I'll go with 6.
Like, man, that offensive line is so. In case Keenum's the quarterback, like,
yeah, I mean,
it's not like it's a guy running away from them.
I mean, let's remember that this team closed out the season with a 24-0 like shellacking of the Redskins last season. I mean, they beat them 24-0, and it probably should have been like 45-0. I mean, they took their foot off the gas when Nick got injured.
Yeah. Wait, so they do have interesting running backs, including Wendell Smallwood, by the way, first game back. But can you like even name they're like top 3 receivers off the top of your head? Like, it's a pretty terrible group. Yeah, this has to be the worst collection of weapons in the league.
Paul Richardson.
Yeah, he's the obvious one. Obvious in quotes.
Yeah, Paul Richardson.
It's bad.
That's all I got. I haven't really looked at their roster.
So they have Kelvin Harmon, they have Terry McLaurin, they have Trey Quinn. Like Kelvin Harmon, but nobody else did because he was drafted like the 7th round.
Yeah.
And Trey Quinn, I think, is like their other starter.
Trey Quinn's their
and Jordan Howard is on his 10th concussion, and I don't know why he's still playing football.
Howard?
Jordan Reed, sorry. Jordan Reed is on like his 12th concussion. I keep going up.
Yeah.
Actually, he's had like 7, I think.
Yeah, he's had
like stop, just quit, man. Stop. Don't play anymore.
Chris Borland quit.
And there's talk about him being ready for like week 1 or week 2. Like, why?
I don't know.
Quit.
I don't know.
7 concussions. I had like 1 minor concussion in college, and I was reeling for like 2 weeks after that.
I've had 3. And, well, we all know me, so we all know where mine
is. We don't need to get into concussion discussion, but like that, like just retire, bro.
Yeah.
But Case Keenum, his first game against the Eagles since that. What happened in the last one he played against?
Andrew Zendejo got ran over by.
That's right. Oh man, that's so funny. Oh, I forgot.
Not if
you're
him.
Yeah, he doesn't.
He doesn't really like that.
He doesn't like talking very much. I would say
he doesn't like talking about it. Except for special teams.
We'll do full predictions Friday, but like just early in the week, how do you feel this game's going to go?
I think it'll be closer than a lot of people think.
Really?
I think.
Why?
I still think it's going to be a 2-score game
because of their defense.
Yeah, their defense is good. I think the Eagles are going to have to knock some rust off. I think it's going to be fairly close going to halftime, and then the Eagles pull away. But I think I have it like 24-13.
Wow. I think the Eagles are going to win by a couple of touchdowns actually. And that mostly comes on the fact that I think if the Eagles come out and score quickly, the Redskins aren't really built to come back. So
correct.
My basis is that I think they come out and score quickly. Maybe Deshaun, who famously is better against the teams he's played against than anybody else. Although I don't know if he has any ill will towards the Redskins or not. Maybe he does. Did they dump him or did he just? Oh, he was a free agent.
Yeah,
right?
he was a free agent.
Yeah, so it's not like anything. They just weren't good when he was there.
Yeah, I think that was one of the rumored teams that he was interested in going to, actually, before he came here.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's right. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I don't even know if there's that many guys left from when he was there, honestly. And that was only a couple years ago.
There's some. I mean, if he goes up against Josh Norman, they were teammates, I think, his last year there. But yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we can end on that. Like I said, make sure you guys send us your prediction for their record and one other bold prediction, and we'll go through all of them. I'll send out a note on Twitter either tonight, tomorrow, both, so you guys start sending them our way. Write reviews, leave some comments, and we're looking forward to the season preview pod and to this season. Thank you guys for listening.